What's up, D-Gens? This week on SGPN, Sean and Ryan kick off their NFL previews, plus podcasts covering fantasy football preseason reactions, the UFC on ESPN, the NL Cy Young race, and the Northern Trust. All that and more exclusively on SGPN.
The MMA Gambling Podcast on the Source Gambling Podcast Network is presented by WynnBET. WynnBET is now live in Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. From boosted parlays to in-game odds on every major sport, WynnBET has what you need to win. Sign up today and receive a $500 risk-free bet. Download the WynnBET app now or visit WYNNBet.com and start winning today. We're also brought to you by PropSwap, America's #1 app to buy and sell sports bets. Use promo code SGP on your first deposit and receive up to $500 in bonus cash. That's PropSwap.com, promo code SGP. And finally, we're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up at UnderdogFantasy.com with promo code SGPN and receive a free $25 entry to use in the Best Ball Mania 2 contest for a chance to win $1 million. That's right, $1 million at UnderdogFantasy.com. And, of course, do not forget to download the SGPN app in the App Store or Google Play Store. It is available now, and you can get all of our podcasts, picks, news, all right in the palm of your hand. That's the SGPN app in either the App Store or the Google Play Store.
Howdy-ho, DeGenerinos, and welcome back to the MMA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, episode 64. And my rock and roll historian son says that we have to, if it's 64, we have to dedicate it to the Beatles, because that's when Beatlemania really broke out in the United States in 1964. So this goes out to the Beatles, like they don't have enough accolades already. I would be your host, Jeff Fox. Welcome to the podcast. If you're here for the first time, you will hear a bunch of nonsense spewed out of my mouth, and sometimes some good gambling tips, but mostly some nonsense. You can read my nonsense at sportsgamblingpodcast.com, obviously, and on my MMA site, MMA-manifesto.com. And if you are listening to us on the Sports Gambling Podcast feed, if you can make sure you subscribe to the feed for this podcast, MMA Gambling Podcast, that would be great. Our new schedule is just kicked in, so if you want this podcast when it's fresh and piping hot out of the oven, only way you can get it is on the MMA Gambling Podcast feed. The one on the Sports Gambling Podcast feed will be going out at least a day later, and every episode may not be posted there also. So, like I said, just subscribe to it, okay? Be a buddy, do that. All right, I couldn't do this on my own. Actually, think about that for a second. I probably could do this on my own. I haven't really taken time to think about this. If I did this on my own, I could keep all the money. Only my opinions would be spewed forth. I'd have no one making fun of me when I mispronounce Fighters from Kazakhstan's name. Okay, I'm going to have to think this through. It's too late for this episode, because I already have my co-host on the line. So I guess I'll introduce him. I'm going to have to think about doing this on my own. My co-host is really good. My associate host is really good. He's a bit of a weird guy, but he steams a really good ham. So that's the main reason why he's on the podcast. That would be Daniel Gumby Vreeland.
So I'm going to ask you, if you think you could do it alone, whose picks are you trailing each week, if that's the case?
Mine.
When you have a big question mark after a fight and you just wait for that associate co-host to drop his pick, and then somehow yours is now made in the same. What are you going to do when you're on your own on those question marks?
I should actually see how many of the question marks would have been right, just going off my gut rather than seeing what Dan thinks. So I don't want to hear anything out of you. You're saying bad things about Gary Sheffield before we went on the air. So I get you. I actually need you on this week because it's a really big podcast with lots of topics to cover. So I'm sure you have lots of things. It's the hottest. That was the hottest weekend in MMA history we just got through here. So much to talk about, right?
If we're not having a UFC though, I will say there was a lot, and there was also a lot of people that. Those of you out there who are just fans of the UFC and not fans of broader MMA, there were enough people who were UFC washouts or departures that you knew a little bit of what was going on regardless.
It's true.
Because you got Rory Mack, you got Gleason Tebow, you got Olivier Aubin-Mercier. There you go. There's 3 right there. And then you had Gegard Mousasi. Yeah, Gegard Mousasi. So, like, there's 4 guys who you'd know even if you weren't, like a diehard who follows every single promotion and knows every single guy. Like, they were all decent-sized names in the UFC.
It's true. Dan's trying to sell this episode for you.
I pretty much that's my other thing too. Nobody'd listen to this if you just pooped all over regional MMA all day and then there was nobody here to make it sound cheery, or pooped on a like what was the name of that card that you really hated so much, and I just tried to put a cheery spin on it every time.
Oh yeah, there was
the Uriah Hall one, the Uriah Hall Sean Strickland card. That it was really terrible.
You're going to tell me this coming week's is awesome too, I'm sure.
Are you going to get mad about a co-main event with Clay Guida in it?
Clay Guida and Mark O. Madsen. That is co-main event material if I've ever heard one.
I can't wait to break down, can Clay Guida stop this wrestling, and will Marco Madsen get tired? Because that's literally the question to every single Clay Guida fight. It's like, who has the wrestling advantage? Will the other guy be tired enough that it won't matter who has an advantage because Clay Guida just takes over on just pure will? Yes,
but we're not going to talk about that because this episode's already jam-packed with topics. I'm sure you came to the table with plenty of ideas for topics, right?
I mean, like we should recap PFL and Bellator. Yeah, those are my contributions. Of
course, we will do that. But first, my contribution is to do some ad reads and see if I can not butcher them. This one's for WinBet. Ready to win money and boost your odds? WinBet is now live in Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. We're bringing the excitement of Win Las Vegas to online sports betting and casino play. Exclusive rewards right at your fingertips. Get in on all your favorite teams, players, and sports from NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, golf, MMA, WNBA, college football, and more. Great promos, odds, and parlays. Sorry, not parlays, payouts, but there are parlays also, are happening right now at WinBet. From boosted parlays, there's that word, to in-game odds on every major sport. We have what you need to win. Ready to play? Sign up today to receive a special offer. Rick's free $500 sports bet. Download, bet, and win. Download the WinBet app now or visit wynnbet.com to start winning. All right, I got Bellator on my screen, so let's jump into Bellator. I turned it on right partway through the second round of the main event. Salter was trying his hardest to get Mousasi down, and he didn't do it. And then shortly thereafter, in the next round, Mousasi ground and pounded him out, and was his typical lackadaisical, nonchalant self. So, Salter won the first round. Is that correct? I take it you watched all of it.
I mean, like you could probably argue he might have. Okay. I didn't see the judges' scorecards. They're not as good at. I know the UFC now tweets out the judges' scorecards even in a stoppage sometimes so that you can see what the scores were. So you don't have to wonder did he need the stoppage there or not? I could see you giving the first round to Salter, but close enough that that I wasn't going through it with a fine-tooth comb or anything. But yeah, I'd probably give him the first round.
Was the first round the same as the rest of the fight? Pretty much Salter trying to get it to the ground and Mousasi stopping him?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was no question even before the fight what this fight was going to look like. I even said it on the show that, the reason I like John Salter in this fight, first of all, were the fact that his odds were ridiculous, and second of all was because that's the type of fight he brings, right? He is an incredible grappler. He gets in your face. He tries to pin you against the cage. He tries to hold you down. And he's fighting a kickboxer. So you expected him to not have any interest in keeping the feet. And yeah, that's pretty much what it looked like. A guy who didn't want to be on the feet with Gegard Mousasi and a guy who didn't want to be on the bottom against John Salter.
Yep, there you go. Anything else really to say about that fight? It was pretty much played out as you expected, despite you picking John Salter. You picked him. the way you got yourself out of that is you were just picking them based on the number of percent.
I said that Gegard Mousasi, if it was a 50-50 odds, you pick Gegard Mousasi all day, but I think we saw him at plus 280 or something like that. John Salter was definitely playable. Yeah, it played out pretty much like I would expect. Here's the only thing I get afterwards is like, and I feel like we have to talk about this because it happens at every single Bellator card, or it feels like it, and it happened twice on this card, is that the instant reaction from both like the Bellator social media accounts and like some of the fighters themselves is like to declare themselves the best in that weight class in the world immediately after, which first of all, it sounds out, correct me if I'm wrong, it comes out like disparaging to Bellator. Because nobody wins a title in the UFC and says, I am now the best featherweight in the world. No, you won the belt. We assume you're the best featherweight in the world, right? You win the Bellator belt, or even in this case, defend a Bellator belt, or in the case of Rufian Stotts, like who we can talk about a little bit later on if you want, he declared he was the best bantamweight in the world without winning a Bellator belt, and like then started to challenge or talk about why he was better than the 135 pounders in the UFC. It just comes off sounding like they know that Bellator is second fiddle, even if like Bellator is slowly proving the gap isn't all that big.
Yeah, no, they totally have the underdog mentality, but not in a good way. They totally feel the organization, and I'm sure a lot of the fighters feel inferior or that they're looked at as being inferior.
But it's almost like the wrong way to prove it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
If you were out to prove that, and somebody asked you the question, you just say it. But otherwise, like the best way to prove it would be like Mousasi going out there and being like, can't wait to fight Austin Vanderford. He is undoubtedly, one of the best challengers for me right now. And, like, just saying stuff like that, like, just pumps up your organization. You're interested in fighting the guy in your organization. Whereas, like, every single time, let's take Pitbull, for instance. Every single time Pitbull won the 45 or 55-pound title, the first tweet he'd send out was, yo, Max Holloway, do you want a cross-promotional match? And Max Holloway wasn't even the champ at 45. Right? Like, he's looking for a cross-promotional match with not the champion of another organization. Like, it's almost like Bellator needs to like just coach these fighters and being like, do you realize what you're doing? It sounds so amateurish.
And it also doesn't help that Mousasi can't remember Austin Vanderford's name, which is great.
Well, and also like, I don't mean to disparage Mousasi. There are people out there who are huge Mousasi fans. Do you remember?
I'm a Mousasi fan. He's awesome.
I like him too, but do you remember what he looked like in the UFC? Do you remember a knockout loss to Uriah Hall? Do you remember getting submitted easily by Jacare? Like, Jacare just played with his food until he finished Gegard Mousasi. Like, and granted, yes, it is 6 years later and people change, but he's only on a 3-fight winning streak, one of which was over a welterweight, one of which was a split decision over Loyola Machida. Like, your run is not that good right now, bro.
Yep. It is true. It's so Bellator. So now you get to fight a guy with really cool neck tattoos and a big eyeball on his Adam's apple staring at you, which is quite distracting.
Although I will say, Austin Vanderford, like, gets a bad rap. He is actually pretty good too. Like, I actually think that's kind of a fun fight. And whether or not he walks out to Mr. Paige Van Zandt as his nickname again is sort of immaterial because, like, I mean, like, he's 11-0. He's beaten guys like he's supposed to beat, like Fabian Edwards, and I mean, like, they haven't thrown tons in front of him, but yeah, like, if the champ went in and hyped him up, it would do more for the champ.
Yes, but that's not Gegard Mousasi. He's
not the easiest to promote.
Sleepyhead does not play that game. So, your other two picks for Bellator did come through. You had Pam Sorensen winning. She snuck by, but you got minus 126 for her, which is nice. Then Davian Franklin, minus 253, came through.
And I said that was an easy 253 too, and it was an easy
21 seconds is as easy as it gets, isn't it? Almost as easy as it gets. So any thoughts on either of those fights?
I mean, Davian Franklin showed that, like I said, he is a hyper prospect, and they paired him with a guy who was 15-0, and I'm pretty sure I said beforehand, Everett Cummings has fought one of the softest 15-0 schedules I've ever seen in my whole life. And that includes, like, some goofy boxing ones, because, like, this dude had a real soft schedule, and then they just put him in there. Like I said, Davian Franklin is Jackson Wink. I did look it up afterwards because I said it on the show, and then I'm like, I hope I didn't get that wrong. He is one of those guys on like a Jackson Wink scholarship where they just are like, come train with us for free. We're gonna make you a killer. So he's like down there on that system, and man, he looks good. He's like hyper athletic, young. You know, he's a heavyweight that fills out 265 and looks like he should weigh 265. You know, he doesn't look like he should just drop weight. Like, he's just a legit 265. He's kind of exciting. I'd be excited to see him against, you know, the big names at heavyweight in the near future.
Yeah, hopefully they don't rush him too much, but that's not really Bellator's style. I'm sure they'll give him they'll give him plenty of punching bags, as many punching bags as he needs. You said something interesting there. You said you worry about saying wrong things on this podcast. For real? When did that start?
I occasionally, when I, especially because I did it with like 7 caveats last episode. If you go back to last episode, the amount while I was editing it, the amount of times I said, I could be mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, it was nauseating how many times I said that. So I like.
Well, you never listen back to yourself. That's
it is painful. But I went back and listened and was like, oh, like all of these things are true. I didn't have to like give a whole bunch of caveats. I'm just right about stuff often. So.
Whoa! Listen to this guy. Listen to this guy.
I'm coming off a 10-3 UFC event. I think I can roll it a little bit.
2-3 on Bellator last night. There you go. Any thoughts on Pam Sorensen? She won split decision over Roberta Samad, who I've never heard of before, but that was Sorensen's Bellator debut. Any thoughts on that? Did you see that fight?
Yeah, she looked a little bit like I thought she would. Maybe a touch worse, but I was actually kind of impressed with Samad, who had some huge time off, and people once thought of her as a prospect, but like she looked kind of bad in a fight here or there, and she like looked like what people had hyped her up as like years and years ago. Like when Bellator first got their hands on her, and she got smoked by Julia Budd. So, like I was impressed. It's really good for Pam Sorensen because there aren't a whole lot of people that they can sell to fight Cyborg right now, and if that is something she wants for her health, that's a thing she can have pretty soon.
That was like a drug joke you made there, right? You said smoke Bud. Are you trying to make like a drug reference?
No, I
smoked by Bud. Isn't that like?
Oh yeah, hey, yeah. I didn't get that. No, that was a pun that went.
Weed's cool now, isn't it?
It's been legal in Canada.
It's legal
for years,
up here
right?
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So anyhow, you hit 2 for 3. Not too shabby, and you got good money for Sorensen, so that's not too shabby. Any other fights worth mentioning from Bellator?
Not really.
I only saw that.
I mean, like Ralphie Stotts, again, claiming he's the best bantamweight in the world at 17-1, which don't get me wrong, 17-1, really nice record, and he beat Magomedov, who
yes, one of the Magomeds that were fighting.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, Magomedov actually very legit. If you go back to 2017, before he got signed by the UFC, he actually gave Piotr Jan one of his losses. He also lost to Piotr Jan shortly before, so they went 1-1. So, and it was Piotr Jan of 4 or 5 years ago at this point in those 2 fights. But like that means it's a legitimate win for Ralphie Stotts. But again, immediately gets on Twitter or social media and is like, I'm the best in the world because I beat a guy who beat the UFC champion, and that must mean I'm the best. And like, yeah, but he also lost to the UFC champion. MMA math doesn't work like that. And like, things change over 5 years. And also by that logic, like, you can pretty much make anybody the best in the world by that logic. But yeah, like
we should do that sometime. That would be fun. That'd be a good article.
There used to be it doesn't work so well anymore because it hasn't been updated. But there was like an MMA math website where you could just plug the names of fighters in, and it would tell you the path you need to prove that like Chris Lieben could beat Fedor, and it was great. And I would mess around with it for hours. But the guy who like coded it and did it for like fun, just like left it there after like putting all the names in. So like there's no new names. It like doesn't feed off of Tapology or anything like that. It just like had a bunch of names in there, and it was really fun to play with.
So you finally get internet in your life, and that's what you spend your time doing?
I did. I spent a lot of time on that.
And since you claim you're always right, you said that Magomedov signed with the UFC. He signed with Bellator. Just I thought I would throw that out there. You're not always correct. Sometimes you.
No, I said before. I said before.
No.
Before he signed Piotr Jan signed for the UFC.
Okay, fine.
Take the negative mark off
You're right.
the board.
Yes. Boy. All right. So, yeah, we can put that event to bed. They got another, we may as well briefly talk about, they got one coming up this week, since we don't really have time to talk about Bellator on the regular preview shows because it's all UFC, but they've got Kongo versus Karatonov. Sergey Karatonov is finally coming back. Former
Czech Congo, which everybody was like thinking, how can I get more Czech Congo in my life?
Exactly. So he was Karatonov was he was the Bellator champ, right?
Was he really?
Was he not?
No, I don't.
No. I'm thinking of someone. I'm thinking of another big Russian guy.
Yeah. You're
who disappeared.
He's coming back though too. The one who beat Alexander Volkov.
Yes.
Am I drawing a blank now too?
Yeah.
Alexander Volkov. I was at his fight where he fought Volkov too. Damn it! It's gonna come to me. Give me a second.
It will. But anyhow, he's back. 21-year veteran. He last fought in Bellator in 2019. Lost to Linton Vassal. Last fought in Dubai in Paris FC MMA. Have you ever heard of Paris FC, Dan?
I have not. I'm actually seeing it on his I'm seeing it on his Tapology right now, and it's spelled with a U, which kind of surprised me.
Shows you how bad an organization that is. So anyhow, that's the big main event they're going to get in the Sanford Pentagon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Have you ever been to South Dakota, Dan?
I have not. No, not a whole lot of reason to go to South Dakota.
You're not helping here, are you? So that's the main event. Who do you like in that fight? Quickly. Doesn't matter.
It's like the worst kind of heavyweight action because it's like two guys who slug, have no other facet to their game, right? Because Karatanov's a former kickboxer. Have you ever seen Czech Congo shoot a takedown? I haven't either. Like both of them are liable to be knocked out cold, right? Like you wouldn't be surprised to see Czech Congo get knocked out. And I'm pretty sure didn't Karatanov get knocked out by? Man, who did he?
He got knocked out by a lot of people looking through his record.
Oh, Linton Vessel. Linton Vessel.
Yeah,
is the one I'm thinking of. Who's a 205er, if I'm not mistaken. I think he makes 85 sometimes. So he's like a little guy. So like, I wouldn't be surprised to see either of them get knocked out. If you read me the odds right now, and I'm sure Best Fight Odds have them, whoever has a plus number next to their name, bet that one because it's a coin. This fight's a coin flip.
Well, let me look it up. And I just saw the name we're trying to get. It's Vitaly Minakov.
Vitaly Minakov.
Of course.
I did like that guy. He is good.
Yeah. Bellator. I don't see numbers for it for some reason, but there you go. And then what? Anything else? Co-main event's kind of interesting, right? Adam Borix versus J.J. Wilson. That's a pretty good flyweight fight.
That's a fun one. I will also say I think Logan Storley is like probably a super underrated guy. He lost a split decision. His only loss is a split decision loss to Yaroslav Amosov, who is the one who just beat Diego Lima for the title and is 26-0. And it was a split decision loss to Amosov. 29-28, 28-29, 29-28. So, like, he, I think, is still kind of like a sleepy pick to be, like, maybe the best welterweight in Bellator still. Like, I think he might beat Diego Lima with his, like, wrestling-heavy style. So, like, he's kicking off the main card against some guy I've never heard of, Dante Shiro, which is, I guess he's 8-2, which is, I guess, something. And he fought a couple of times, once for ONE FC and a couple of times for LFA. I guess that's good, but he's probably going to get wrestled in violent fashion by Logan Storley, so that's kind of fun. I used to be a fan of Marcelo Gome, who I thought was fighting on this. Oh, he is fighting on this. Marcelo Gome is kind of fun. And then, who's the other person I saw on here? Oh, Deanna Bennett is like, she's not, nobody's going to say Deanna Bennett is like one of the best featherweights in the world, but she did like beat Miranda Maverick back in Invicta. She's fought Liz Carmouche. She's fought she was on The Ultimate Fighter for a little while. She lost to Sajara Eubanks. She's fought Roxanne Modaffari. She beat Jennifer Mott. She's beat Juliana Pena. She's just got one of those crazy long women's MMA records that has fought everybody, but now her record's 10-7, so nobody's super interested in her. So she's on that fight card. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, you have interesting ideas of fun, Dan, but hey. We've heard about your backstory, so I guess whatever you can get, right?
That's right. Well, yeah, and if you really like MMA, you figure it out.
Yeah, whatever. Dan's just sitting around in the woods by himself, so that works, right?
Yeah, this will be more in fun than sitting alone in the woods.
Wow, that is super fun. You know what's even more fun? Playing on Prop Swap. That's the funnest.
Nice transition.
Yes. Brought to you by Prop Swap, America's #1 app to buy and sell sports bets. Football season is about to kick off. Prop Swap is here to make this your best season ever. With Prop Swap, your bet doesn't need to win in order to make money. It just needs to improve. For example, last year, Mac Jones was 25-1 to win the Heisman Trophy, and then by November, he became the favorite. Prop Swap customer who bet $100 on Mac before the season sold that Heisman ticket on Prop Swap for $1,000. Cashing out at the right time, right before Devontae Smith ran away from the field. Think of Prop Swap like the stock market, but for sports betting. Buy low, sell high. The average seller on Prop Swap makes over $500 per month just listing and selling tickets. And when you're making your bets, remember to go for two and make 2 tickets on the same team so you can sell one for a profit and keep one to leave yourself some skin in the game. Get started today by going to PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app. PropSwap is where America buys and sells sports bets. You know what else is fun? Saying Yaroslav Amosov. That's a fun name.
Look at you saying the Russian name right.
Not that hard. Yaroslav Amosov. All right, that's PFL. You watch PFL also on Friday?
I did. I flipped back and forth with Bellator, and I'll be real honest. I watched the first round of Ray Cooper, Rory McDonald, and I was like, nah, I think I'm going to go watch Mousasi.
You didn't need to watch the rest of it.
It was really bad, right? It was not. It was and I think my favorite comment about this fight came on Twitter from Benjamin Abrigo, who is a pretty apt MMA analyst who sometimes joins me on the prelim primary, and he said before the fight, he was like, who's ready for some Ray Cooper violence with 8 exclamation points or something like that?
Nobody, hopefully.
And then immediately afterwards was his first response after that was, it turns out less violent Ray Cooper is more dangerous than violent Ray Cooper. Which I think is right. When Ray Cooper just wanted to fight technical, he was really good in there. It's just it's kind of like Rory McDonald. When he is really safe, it's really terrible to watch. Yeah, well, he looked pretty terrible, too. Ray Cooper wrestled him down. Rory had no answers at all and lost 3 rounds to 9. So just I'm sure PFL was hoping when they signed Rory McDonald, he is out in the semifinals. Yeah, well, I mean, that. First of all, that's a step further than some of their big signings. But at the same time, I have to ask you this, because I've seen this question circulating around, and I'm not sure where even I fall, especially because I didn't watch all of this fight with Ray Cooper. Do you think Rory McDonald is either A, washed to the point where he's not really good anymore? Do you think his head is just not in it? Or do you think he's just run into competition that might be better than him? I don't think anyone in PFL is better than Rory McDonald. That's me too. I agree with that one. That was my first inkling that nobody's better. Rory McDonald had amazing fights with the top level guys. I mean, he beat some of the top level guys in the UFC. So I'm not sold that Ray Cooper is a better fighter. So then what is it? Is he washed or is he mentally not there? It's probably both, or a combination of both, I would say. Look at you flipping the tables and asking me questions here. But he never was he ever really into MMA?
That's
That's a good question.
I mean, 100% at all times. He's one of those weird, intense psycho guys, but like you get burned out on that pretty quick. And for a while in the UFC, he seemed like he had enough too. Wasn't he flirting with retirement a few years ago? Also, I think.
I know when he left the UFC, there was like talk that like maybe he just wouldn't go anywhere, or like, you know, like, and then he went to Bellator and he seemed into it, and then it seemed like, especially after the draw with John Fitch, that's when you're thinking, after he drew John Fitch, but got to keep going in the tournament because it was the welterweight tournament. So he was the champ. So they're like, oh, the champ's going to keep going and not the guy who just drew with him. He was like, maybe I don't fight in the next round. And they were like, no, but like you got to.
Oh, yeah, that's when he was going to quit, right? I remember now, yes.
And they're like, but like also like you got to. Like, so then he did, and he beat Neiman Gracie, which is still pretty impressive. Neiman Gracie's pretty good.
Yeah. And
then he got trounced by Douglas Lima. So, yeah, and then that's when he departed Bellator. He was just out of there after that. And since then, he's beat Curtis Millender, and who was supposed to fight this weekend against Gleison Tebow, but pulled out. And then he sort of lost to Gleison Tebow. But like, even though he won that fight against Gleison Tebow, it didn't make me feel warm and fuzzy inside about where Rory McDonald's career was at. And then, Ray Cooper kind of took it to him. So, yeah, I think you're probably right. I think it's probably he was mentally out of the game enough that his mental process and stuff is probably starting to detract from his abilities. And the fact that he, like, doesn't want to be an MMA fighter anymore. I can't imagine you're, like, getting better in the gym every single week if that's your mentality, but...
No.
Yeah, it's what a weird career trajectory from Rory McDonald.
Yeah.
From Canada's Crown Prince.
Yeah, he was supposed to be the next great hope, right? I think there's a lot of things going on here. Obviously, he's taken horrific beatings in the past also, which physically and mentally is not going to help with this again. Plus, I remember he was his newfound religion was one of the reasons why he was questioning whether he wanted to do this fighting again. But I think one of the main reasons is you see this with a lot of young prodigies in other sports. He's been doing MMA basically his whole life. His first pro fight, he was 16, his first pro fight in British Columbia. So like he's been doing this for half of his life already, professionally half of his life. And how long can you really mentally stay in and be as intense as you need to be to compete at the top of the sport for that long, and plus take the beatings that he's taken, plus have different philosophies on life and whatnot from when he was a teenager and things like that. So I think he's probably mentally and physically beaten down, and he's one of those careers where he didn't. He had a good career, but he didn't make it to the top. He didn't quite reach the heights that everyone had him pegged for when he entered the UFC in 2010. So he was 21 years old or 20. He might not. Yeah. So
and he fought Mike Guyman in his first fight, who like most people probably don't know Mike the Joker Guyman, but then he fought Carlos Condit, Nate Diaz, Mike Pyle back to back. Had a little bit of a break with Shea Mills, and then fought BJ Penn and Jake Ellenberger and Robbie Lawler and Damian Maia and Tyrell. Like, dude, that run that's a crazy run. And even Tarek Savanin is like a tough one. And then he got his rematch with Lawler and Wonder Boy. Like that run in the UFC is insane. And like you said, there's some beatings in there. So I got a Rory McDonald trivia question. So you know his nickname is the Red King.
Yes.
Do you know what his nickname was when he started in the UFC?
Oh yes, I do. What was it? He didn't like it.
He hated it, but for very good reason.
It was like it was started with an A, correct?
No, actually, I think that was his second one.
Oh yeah, he had a second one that was like, what was the second one again?
Is it Aries? Was it
yes,
Aries?
What was his first one?
This is way worse than Aries.
I can't remember.
I'm going
to remember when you tell me.
It was Waterboy.
Yes, I remember that now, yes.
Rory the Waterboy McDonald.
Now, was it from the Adam Sandler movie, or was it from something else we're talking about?
I don't know. Like, I don't think he looks enough like Adam Sandler for him to be
so it's not a Zohan thing?
Yeah, no, the Zohan, dude, that is fitting. Randy Costa being called the Zohan, Like,
yes.
dude, he looks a little bit like the Sohan. But, like, no, like, I mean, it could have been because he's probably the right age for that shit, right? But, like, at the same time, like, I think it's just because, like, when he was new to the UFC, he was really skinny. I think he just looked like people thought he looked like a water boy for, like, a sports franchise. And like, and he hated that. And then he was like, no, it's Aries. And then, like, that wasn't cool enough. So now he's
you don't get to pick your own nickname. That's not how it works.
Well, and also, like, if you get stuck with a bad one, I feel like you just have to ride that bad branding, right? Like, we talked the other day about the Afro Samurai, Jamie Simmons, who I interviewed. He freaking hates having an afro. Did you know that? Like, I wrote an article.
Well, I listened to it, so yes.
He hates having an afro. He likes his hair short, but he's just like, well, I got this nickname now, and he just rides it and has an afro now. So, I mean, I don't think you have to change your physical appearance to match it, but, like, once that nickname's there, like, you just hang on to it. The Phenom is still the Phenom, Vitor Belfort. The Prodigy is still the Prodigy, BJ Penn. It doesn't matter that they're 40 and have traumatic brain injury.
I feel like what you just said relates to what Rory McDonald feels about MMA. He's like, I'm an MMA fighter, so I guess I got to fight, you know. Yeah, I guess I'm stuck with it. That maybe sums it up perfectly, just like how you might be stuck and you have to write out a nickname. It's almost like it's an obligation now for him to fight. So maybe that's it. Maybe he's done. Do you think he's done?
That was kind of what happened. Am I wrong, though? Is that not kind of what happened to GSP?
Yes.
Like, GSP kind of felt that same way. He burned out, came back for a fight, won, and then they couldn't even entice him to defend that title, right? Like, he had, like, what probably would have been a pretty exciting fight on the docket with Robert Whittaker, and he just walked away from that. And I mean, like, could you imagine if he was still, if he stuck around for a year or two and wound up defending against Israel Adesanya, it would have been huge for one of their careers, right? Like, wouldn't that have been a huge feather in Izzy's cap to take the belt off of GSP or something like that? Like, GSP had a bunch of big money fights left, and, like, it just didn't excite him. He's only into dinosaurs and what's that quote? The dinosaurs, the
aliens and women, maybe?
In a woman's touch or something like that. Three things excite me. Three things excite me.
Oh, violence.
Violence in the violence of the octagon, women, of course, and dinosaurs, or something like that, or like women, of course, came third or something like that, right after the violence of the octagon and dinosaurs.
Yes. All right, there's three things in life that excite me, he told Ariel Helwani. There's a woman, of course, dinosaurs, and the violence of the octagon. Yes.
But violence of the octagon comes after women and dinosaurs.
Exactly.
So, like, like that shows you how much he liked it. But to my actual point here, he was kind of out of it mentally, but was so good he could stick around. Whereas, like, Rory McDonald doesn't have that luxury, right? Like, he's not that much better than the next guy, or isn't as crazy driven in the gym for fear of losing like GSP was. Because GSP has said he was, like, so afraid of losing, he had to kill himself in the gym so that wasn't an option. And maybe that's just not Rory.
No, and he didn't get destroyed in a bunch of fights like Rory has.
One punch from that Sarah is pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, so it's once again weak-minded Canadians, you know, quitting on their sport. So this is maybe a good aside. Also, I hate to say it because it's fun to bag on the UFC and their matchmaking and their personnel decisions, but it just seems to be another case of the UFC. They seem to always know when the right time is to let this weekend prove it again. Roy McDonald, bye-bye. Earlier on, they had Showtime Pettis didn't even make this part of the playoffs. UFC let him walk. It seems Demetrius Johnson, Eddie Alvarez, they seem to always know when to cut ties with the fighter. And even though, like, we'll, like, stomp and scream about them cutting John Fitch or Yushin Okami, but they proved to be right. Now, I don't know if it's a chicken or an egg thing, whether the fighters are worse because they're not in the UFC or because or they were going to be bad, and that's why the UFC cut them. But they seem to always know when to cut a fighter. I can't really think of any fighter that left the UFC and actually became better. Ryan Bader's a champ, but I don't think he's really better. He's just fighting lesser competition. Can you think of anyone that is an exception to that, or do you disagree with that?
I think Ryan Bader probably did more for his personal brand having left. Right?
Yeah.
I think that worked out for him. So I'm going to say one name that I think is actually doing better and looks better now that he's out of the UFC, and that's Arjun Buller. But I think the UFC didn't cut ties with him.
On the margins.
And I think, well, he's a ONE FC champ now, is he not?
Oh, yeah, that's the biggest promotion in the world. That's right.
Yeah, he did beat Brandon Vera for it, though, though. So it's not a bad loss.
Yeah,
or not a bad
20 years
win.
ago, yeah. But that was his decision. You're right, to walk.
Yeah, it was his decision. Yeah. They didn't cut him. And here's the other question I will say, because I actually struggle with this question when we're thinking about these people who left, the Rory McDonalds who kind of petered out, the Anthony Pettis's who had a tough time with Clay Collard and Raj Manfio and all of these guys. Like, my question is it that they lost a step leaving the UFC? There's less motivation. They think they're going to steamroll people. Is it a mental training? Or is this a way of knowing that, like, the difference between a UFC fighter and an outside the UFC fighter on some of these larger organizations is maybe just not that big? And the problem is we can never know, right? Like, there's never going to be something that, like, clearly shows us, because the UFC never signs any of these guys unless they're, like, the super champ of that organization, right? Like, if the UFC signed Ray Cooper III, we wouldn't be shocked, and then, like, we wouldn't actually be able to tell if Rory McDonald is still got it or not. Like, anybody Rory McDonald beats, the UFC is not touching. So it's like a weird thing where you can't actually know if this is just, like, proof that they're good guys outside of the UFC that could beat some of these top UFC guys, or maybe the motivation factor and, like, the mental aspect of being like, well, I beat a bunch of UFC guys, I can beat these guys. Maybe that's it? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to answer that question, though.
It is, and there is no answer, obviously, for it. But I don't think you really can name one release that blew up in the face, really. Arjun Buller's not really not blown up in the face. Ryan Bader's not blown up in the face. More often than not, they end up looking smart, so...
Yeah, there's nobody who, if you asked the UFC management, and I won't even say just Dana White, because Dana White's like a spiteful dick. So, like, if you ask anybody out there, like, in the UFC management system, like, is there one guy you would pull back? Like, if you could get a mulligan and just say, we're just kidding, we actually still have the rights to that guy? I don't know that there's anyone they think that about.
No.
You know, like,
not Cyborg. No, there's no one.
Cyborg looks good still, but here's the thing I will say: like, she's always been a fighter in a division that is not well developed. Because people rag on the UFC for not making a featherweight division. There is a low number of highly competitive women's featherweights. It's spread over multiple organizations
at this point too. So
women's atomweight is 80,000 times better. Yes, it's 80,000 times better than women's featherweight. And I know everybody's like, if the UFC is going to commit to a featherweight division, they need to just cut that featherweight division right clean out, use whatever money they have invested to keeping that picture up on their website, and build a women's atomweight division, because, like, it would be way better. So, yeah, like, you're right. Cyborg feels like one of the ones who they were like, if we could have Cyborg back, it would be pretty nice. Because I think they did want Cyborg, but they also wanted Cyborg to sign a massively long contract so that she could never get out of it, and she would constantly just be fighting Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes on loop. And she was always going to fight for her worth, and she's getting more in Bellator than the UFC ever would. But I'd say maybe her is the one they would want to redo the most. But even her, like, it's not like Bader is putting people in the seats now, is he?
Nope. No. And Cyborg was too much of a pain in the ass or her management was too much of a pain in the ass too. So I'm sure they don't want to do over there either. So yeah, there really is no fighter that you can think, well, they screwed up there. So it would be nice though it's nice to rag on the UFC, but no. You mentioned them signing Ray Cooper, but no chance he's going to sign with them because he's going for $1 million in his next fight, and UFC is not paying him $1 million. They're not paying many people $1 million. Do you think he's going to get it? He's fighting Magomed Karamov, one of the Magomeds. What do you think of that?
Pretty good. He's pretty good. I mean, Ray Cooper's proven me wrong at whole bunch of times. So, I thought he was going to lose way back when to David Michaud because he's already won $1 million, right? Am I wrong about that? He won the...
did Cooper win one already?
In 2019, I think, and they didn't have welterweight in 2020. Oh, no, they didn't have a season at all in 2020. But yeah, he beat David Michaud in the finals in 2019, so he already has $1 million.
Guy.
He already has $1 million from them. Now, I could be wrong about this too, but I interviewed, was it Lance Palmer? Lance Palmer won a PFL title, right, at one point in time?
Yep.
So it must have been him that I interviewed then. So... Otherwise, that's a really weird name to just come up with and pretend I interviewed. But he said after you win the $1 million, there's a clause in there that if they want to bring you back for the next season, they get to. Right. So yeah, in order to make it to the UFC, he would have to lose the $1 million, and then they would have to see him as enticing enough to sign to one of their crappy contracts.
10 and 10, 10,000 to start, guys.
I think he could. I'd say this. I think with a $1 million PFL, the fact that he just beat the hell out of Rory McDonald, I'm not saying he could get, like the type of money Sage Northcutt was getting when he first got signed. Because wasn't he on he was like a flat 80 for his first fight or something like that?
Yeah,
because he was
just still not $1 million though.
Because he was pretty. Yeah, because he's pretty. But I think you could probably say Ray Cooper could talk him into 45-45 or 50-50.
Still not $1 million though, right? That's
not
the crazy thing about it.
It's still not $1 million. Yeah. But I also think this season format, I don't think it's for everybody. Right?
No.
His fight with Magomed Karamov is in October. That'll be his fourth fight in 6 months.
Yeah, you got to stay healthy and lucky.
Yeah, and that includes the fight with Rory McDonald, and he did the same thing. I mean, in 2019, he fought. I'm looking right now at PFL's 2019 schedule. He fought 5 times in 7 months. So, I could see him trying to get out for a lesser, easier schedule, especially if he's already got the $1 million. It's a little bit. I mean, not that anybody wants less than $1 million, but he's got that banked. Maybe he does want to pursue bigger things.
To put a bow on PFL 7, Dan picked Roy McDonald. He lost. Dan picked Alex Martinez. He lost. Dan picked Clay Collard. He lost.
Clay Collard won, though. That's the thing, though. Yeah.
Clay Collard. What?
He didn't.
Oh, here we go. Revisionist history.
No. Did you watch the fight, though?
No, I didn't see that.
Let's see if MMA Decision has anything to say about that. I don't know if they do PFL, but there's no way.
Yeah, they do.
They do PFL.
He lost 20. Officially he lost 29-28 and all in scores.
There's no media scores.
Boo.
There's no.
Well, you're wrong. I mean,
okay,
you're wrong.
But look at the fan. So look at the fan voting again.
Fans don't know anything.
Oh, there's only 17 people. 17 people voted, but all 17 of them gave Howard the first round, and it looks like 11 of them gave him the second round. So it's pretty clear that Collard won rounds 1 and 2.
There you go.
There you go. Right. I'm saying he comfortably won rounds 1 and 2.
PFL's back though. It's back this Thursday with Kayla Harrison in the main event against Jenna Fabian, who I know nothing about, but this is the women's lightweight semifinals. And then we got Larissa Pacheco versus Taylor Guadardo.
Pacheco was in the UFC for a second.
She was.
Yeah.
And then we also got the heavyweight playoffs with a bunch of names I've never heard of, which is, I'm sure, exactly how the PFL hoped it would happen, eh? Bruno Capoloza.
There's a couple of good ones in there. So Jamel Jones, who is he's fighting at heavyweight in this, but he fought at light heavyweight on Contender Series. He got knocked out by Mike Rodriguez with a flying knee, and he's real legit. And I actually think that Denis Goltsov is the one they want in the finals. I think he's legitimately probably a top 10-ish heavyweight. Although he does have some one weird loss in the PFL back in 2019. But he's pretty legit. He's fun to watch. He's got wins over guys you've heard of before like Jared Rochelt. So he's good. And that the guy he's fighting too, Ante Dalia, his name was tied to the UFC for a really long time, and then it didn't work out. He wound up in PFL not PFL, KSW before he was in PFL.
And another UFC cast-off for Fabricio Verdum, not in the finals. So there you go. That's another one that's not going to. Well,
But
that was obvious.
Isn't that one sort of because of the like really weird tap out? He should and shouldn't both be in the finals because he got that like weird tap out and it didn't work out, and then it did work out and then it didn't work. Yeah, like craziness. But go back and watch his fight with Renan Faria, who is also fighting on this card.
Yes, it's true. Let me tell you about Paramount Plus, everybody. Summer soccer continues on Paramount Plus. You can stream over 2,000 soccer matches a year from around the world. That's all the heart-pounding drama from CBS Sports, including UEFA Champions League, Europa League, Italy's Serie A, Argentina's Primera Division, the Brasileiro, NWSL, the Asian Football Confederation, and the CONCACAF qualifiers, featuring the stars of U.S. and Mexican men's national teams, plus much more. It's the best of the beautiful game with all the beautiful names like Messi, Mbappe, Ronaldo, Rapinoe, and Pulisic. Be part of the excitement as champions are crowned and history is made. The world's game lives here on Paramount Plus. Visit ParamountPlus.com to start your free trial and stream every match live. Speaking of world, we got a listener question all the way from Turkey. Can you believe that, Dan? We have listeners in Turkey.
That's sort of surprising when you told me that.
Yep. You shouldn't be surprised. We're worldwide. All right. This listener, I won't say your name and try to butcher your name on here. Generally, he wants to know our thoughts on Brock Lesnar, if he actually got into the sport like in the infancy or in the heyday of the heavyweight division, like late 90s, early 2000s. If he got into the sport back then and actually committed to MMA, with the top camp, working on striking, all that type of thing, how do we think he would do against the Nogueiras, the Fedors, the Fabricio Verdums, those type of people?
We're assuming he got in its infancy and didn't sign with the UFC, right? Because the UFC, he would have steamrolled the UFC's heavyweight division at that time.
Okay, well, let's start there. Let's start there then. Fine, yeah. You think
he would have.
Well, he did.
Yeah, he did anyway, right? He did go in and beat up a lot of those relics, but also if he had gotten in earlier, would he have had any problem beating Tim Sylvia? No, he wouldn't have had any problem beating Tim Sylvia, especially because under this assumption, right, we're saying he had longer training, right? He had more training than he did. And I think he had, and I think he committed to it more than I think people get. I think that's a narrative that's not really all that correct, right? Because people say if only he was always training wrestling with people, even when he was doing fake pretend wrestling or whatever what am I supposed to call it instead of fake pretend wrestling? Entertainment
it's professional,
wrestling?
Dan. Oh, it's sports entertainment, yes.
Sports
they
entertainment.
Make movies. They make movies, pal.
If he wasn't doing sports entertainment all that other time, he would have dedicated more time to actual wrestling. He was always wrestling. If you look back, there are clips of him training in the Minnesota wrestling room, even when he was with the WWE. So he always had that training in his back pocket. You're right. If he committed to the striking a little bit more, I'm not sure he would have ever been a quote-unquote striker, but it would have been better. And, he didn't need his striking to beat Tim Sylvia. He didn't need his striking to beat probably a prime Andrei Arlovsky. He probably still gets caught in submissions from Arlovsky and Frank Mir and, the good jiu-jitsu guys of that time. But, the UFC didn't have a lot in their heavyweight division in that era. Remember Paul Buenatello had a freaking title shot. He only lasted 59 seconds, but that dude got a title shot. So, the names that were mentioned there, though, I'm assuming all Pride guys, right? We got Nogueira and Fedor.
The names he mentioned are the Smashing Machine: Mark Kerr, Mark Coleman, Mirko, Krokop, Big Nog, Fedor. How do you think he would do with guys like that?
So, if we're assuming he dedicated, he left college and started training MMA and never went to WWE or only went for a little bit and then really dude, he's a genetic freak, right? That's the thing.
He still is, and he's old.
Right, that's the thing about him. Now, the beauty of Pride is that those contracts directly said in them that they weren't going to drug test you. So you can say that all of his physical attributes stayed around, right? You wouldn't have to worry about him being USADA tested or anything like that. So yeah, man, I think it's so hard to say that somebody would have beat a prime Fedor, right? That's a hard sentence to say. But the thing about Fedor is Fedor put himself in some bad situations a lot, right?
Every fight, basically. That's what makes it so fun.
Yeah, he got dropped on his head once. even that fight where he knocked out, is it Affliction, where he knocked out Andrei Arlovsky?
Yep.
Andrei Arlovsky hurt him.
Yeah, he was in the corner, basically hurt. Arlovsky jumped into
dumbest jump
finish
in MMA history.
Yeah, and he got that must have broke your heart.
It did a lot. Yeah.
Cold cock. Yeah, but I think the main. Sorry,
I think, but back to my point about Fedor always being in a bad spot. Like the thing about being in a bad spot against Brock Lesnar is you don't get out of that bad spot, right? Like you're in it until the round ends, and depending on which era of Pride, we're talking about 10-minute first rounds. He's got you down in the first 30 seconds. Nobody's surviving 9.5 minutes of his ground and pound, right? Like
no, those hands of his are insanely huge.
So you got to assume that he just makes good style matchups. Now again, back to sort of my original point. I think depending on how we're talking about his training, like does he have a jiu-jitsu black belt? Like we can go down a lot of what ifs rounds, but like with the career trajectory we saw him on, I think he still gets subbed by guys like Big Nog or like Fedor catches an armbar off his back, or Verdum works a triangle. Like some of the guys in Pride were experts in the ground game, and like the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world. So yeah, like I think he could probably still get caught a bunch of times in there. I'm not saying he's like 30-0 at the end of his career, but I think he smashes a bunch of people in like some pretty shocking fashion in a lot of those fights and loses some surprising ones. But yeah, I think he probably would have been a top 5 guy of all time. We're probably talking about him on the
that was what he was asking also.
We're probably talking about him on the heavyweight Mount Rushmore, right? And some people still do, and I don't think that's right.
That's super crazy though.
It's not out of the realm of possible, because like who else are you going to put on a heavyweight Mount Rushmore, right? Like Fedor is obviously on it. Then who? Then who is obviously on it? Because like you could say, well, Stipe beat DC 2 out of 3 times, but who else did DC beat at heavyweight though? Josh Barnett, Roy Nelson,
Derek Lewis.
Like I mean, like it's not a bad list, but like if we're telling him he's the greatest of all time, it doesn't look a whole lot better than beating Shane Carwin, Frank Mir, Randy Couture. Yep.
Yeah. Plus the way he was beating people too.
It was devastating, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And like
people
even his losses, like I mean, like the Overeem loss looked kind of bad, but that was after having diverticulitis and getting kicked in the diverticulitis. So,
I don't think you can get kicked in your but okay.
No, it's an infection of the small intestine. Just
it is.
Fun fact for people. My dad had diverticulitis.
No way.
Yeah, he looks much less like Brock Lesnar than people might imagine. But yeah, had the same thing, which is why I remembered it was diverticulitis.
Yes.
But like,
he got big chunks of his intestine taken out, and then he came back to the UFC and fought Alistair Overeem.
A really good kicker who kicked him in the intestines. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
But like, if you can write that one off, like, I mean, he got caught in a leg lock against Frank Mir after being stood up when he shouldn't have been stood up, right? Like,
yeah, he was destroying him.
Yeah, and like, so like, his career is crazy, man. And even the win over Heath Herring, who people thought was going to be a big deal in Pride, is like nothing. So yeah, like, I mean, if you're making a heavyweight Mount Rushmore, he might already be on it. I mean, like, my heavyweight Mount Rushmore probably has Fedor. It definitely has Big Nog, because I think people sleep on Big Nog's career way more than they ought to. And then, like, maybe Stipe. And like, Brock might slot in there, and that might sound sacrilegious, but like, man, dude, his accolades in a short period of time, and like you said, the way he does it, it's crazy. Yeah.
Plus, Verdum, I think someone who gets slept on a bit.
Oh yeah, Verdum's up there too. That's true. I might slot Verdum in there instead of even Stipe. I might slot him above Stipe. He has a win over Stipe, right?
Yes, he's beaten everyone. That's the thing. He's beaten everyone.
No,
Bob's.
No, JDS is a win over Stipe, right?
Right, okay.
Overeem got his head bounced off the floor like a basketball. Yeah. Just need to correct that so I don't have any negatives on my marks.
I think we're forgetting about Bob Sapp. What about Bob Sapp?
Is he like 12-40 now with all the dives he takes?
I think so. I think putting a bow on the Overeem Overeem, Lesnar thing. I think the main problem with him is he never got comfortable with getting hit. No one ever, well, some psychos like getting hit in MMA, but he never seemed to react well or get used to getting hit, and that does not bode well for your future in the sport, especially in the heavyweight division. He seemed never comfortable. Like we're saying, working on his striking, I think more his defensive striking was more important than him actually striking. Because, like I said, I think his main problem was not reacting well to getting hit in the face.
Yeah, that's true, and that's like a whole nother wrinkle in this question too. Is like, do you think that he would have figured that out, or more time in the sport would have helped that, like more time sparring, more time, like, and that's a tricky question. I mean, all of this is a tricky question, but like, you know, if you can assume his jiu-jitsu would have gotten better, because it was already getting better. The arm triangle on Shane Carwin is right up there, is one of my favorite heavyweight submissions. So, and a crazy fight. But like, yeah, like you could have assumed his jiu-jitsu was going to get better. He was going to blend his wrestling takedowns. He was going to add wrinkles to his striking, but like, You can't know whether or not one touch to his nose was going to make him crumple like a flower in the summer. Like, you know, like you never know.
So poetic. Crumple like a flower in the summer. What a poet you are. Let's tell you about Underdog Fantasy while it's in front of me here. Make sure you head over to underdogfantasy.com and use promo code SGPN for a free $25. And then you can use that $25 to sign up and try to win $1 million that they're giving away. So head over to Underdog Fantasy, download the app, underdogfantasy.com, check out the $1 million promo, and make sure you use promo code SGPN to get a free $25. And make sure you download our very own app if you haven't already. The SGPN app is now live in App Store and Google Play. The app gives you easy access to all their picks, podcasts. You can get notifications every time a podcast drops. You can get all of our news, stories, and feature articles on our website. We're currently running out NFL previews every day until the starting of the season, 32 NFL previews every day. So one a day. We're still on the bad teams, but we'll get to the good teams soon. But it'll tell you gambling and fantasy advice for, specific for that team. So make sure you check that out. And when you do download our app, make sure you give us a review and tell everybody how amazing we are. All right. Did you watch any other fights over the weekend, or did we cover everything important? I'm sure you watched something else.
I think we covered all that's important. I peeked in and saw like highlight clips to other things, but that was mostly what I watched.
Okay, good. We don't have to talk about CFFC or something like that then. Good to hear.
No, I think I checked in and saw highlights of CFFC, but nothing like stuck out as being super important or like necessary to talk about.
All right, so we've got UFC on ESPN, even though it's on ESPN2. They're calling UFC and ESPN. Cannonier versus Gastelum, which was originally supposed to be Costa versus Cannonier. It says
I believe
here,
so, which is really funny to me because he dropped out of the fight saying he was sick or couldn't fight, and he's, if I'm not mistaken, already booked again.
Yeah, but no.
He's fighting Marvin Vettori, but it's later.
Yeah.
But, like, he's already booked. So
He also claimed it was contract issues, so who knows with that guy. He's a head case. So
he's nutty as hell.
So it's good. Him and Vettori is going to be the two crazy, angry, nutty guys going out at each other. That'll be interesting.
The lead up to that is probably going to be nice.
Nice. So we got Cannonier versus Gastelum's turning into, like, he's the short notice guy, eh? He's always seems to be on call to step into these fights. So that's an interesting middleweight main event. Now Gastelum has kind of righted his ship. This is Cannonier's. This is probably his first headlining slot, isn't it? I don't remember his name.
No, he headlined and knocked out Jack Hermanson.
Oh, right, Hermanson. He just did that 2 fights ago, and then he lost to Robert Whittaker. No shame in that. But yes, that's true. So we got that. We got the amazing Clay Guida, Mark O. Madsen, co-main event, which it'll be a fine fight. I'm just saying that's a co-main event. So we got Chunky Boys, Chase Sherman and Peter Parker Porter, which will be fun.
I don't think Chase Sherman's a chunky guy, though. Chase Sherman's pretty. Yeah. Parker Porter is pretty big.
Peter Parker. It's Peter Parker Porter. Come on. What else is good? Vink Pichel at Austin Hubbard. That's fun. Pantoja is back versus Brandon Royval. That'll be good in flyweight. So, yeah, there's some interesting fights, but it's pretty much another one of those low-key.
Royval Pantoja should be the co-main event.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much a number one contender fight or very close to it.
Yeah, it's either the rematch or one of those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So they don't have much faith in flyweights, though. So there you go. That's the way it goes. So, is there a fight that jumps off here? Is there a people's main event in your eyes?
Pantoja Royval is going to be insane.
Yeah.
Those two are so fun to watch striking, and both of them are phenomenal grapplers, too. Like, Pantoja shoots a lot of takedowns. Royval likes when people shoot takedowns on him because he just snatches up necks and stuff like that. Royval's weird as hell on the feet, and Pantoja's, like, probably a little bit more technical. That one's going to be really fun. And I'll also say Trevin Jones is stepping up on short notice to fight Mana Martinez, who's finally making his debut. I'm pretty sure he's had a couple of debuts canceled. He was supposed to be on Dana White's looking for a fight, and then that got canceled. And, like, he had a whole bunch of fights drop off there. He was on Contender Series and lost, but in, like, a very weird way. But he's, like, really exciting to watch. If I'm not mistaken, he's finished every single one of his fights in the first or second round. He's never seen a third round. And Trevin Jones he's been like a revelation since coming to the UFC. He beat Timur Valiev and Mario Batista, both by knocking him out. So that one should be violent and really fun for however long it lasts.
There you go. And there's plenty of names for me to stumble over, too, on this card.
I can't wait. I'm pretty sure you've already slaughtered Sasha Platnikov in the past.
Platnikov's not very hard, though. I can say Platnikov. It's more Ignacio Bahamondes. I can say that.
You got that one right. How about who's fighting?
Ramiz Brahimaj.
Close. Brahimaj.
Antonio Braga Nito. Abdul Razak Al Hassan. There's a lot of fun names. But
yeah.
I can say...
and you say Pantoja correctly, so that's already a stat. Yeah.
Alejandra Pantoja also.
Alexandre.
That's right. It's Chandra. Whatever. That's it. We're ending. Juicy Jeff says this is the end of the show. Enough. I'm not taking this abuse anymore. That's why I say I'm going to do this on my own from now on. Thank you for listening. Episode 64. Anything else you wanted to say before I sign us off here, Dan?
No, you got me to be able to correct your pronunciation once, so I got what I needed.
All right, fine. I'm going on vacation again soon, everyone. You just wait. We'll see if I come back or not. But thank you for listening to this episode. Make sure you, like I said, subscribe to our feed. Read our stuff, sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Dan's chipping in on some of the football previews. He does every Sunday night. He does Sunday night baseball, DraftKings /DFS thing, which they're actually every week you've been pretty successful on that, have you not?
Two for two right now.
Nice.
Right, and as we speak, the Dodgers are beating the hell out of the Mets. Doesn't quite have my lineup high enough yet, although Max Muncy just did go yard to make it 6-0 Dodgers in the second.
Wow.
So that's, and I'm pretty sure my lineup was just loaded with Dodgers because the Mets.
I think it was all Dodgers.
The Mets lineup is so bad.
Yes. So anyhow, Dan's going to be retiring soon to a private island off all of his DraftKings wins based on his Sunday night stuff. So you can read all that stuff. You can read all our MMA exclusive stuff over at the site I run, and Dan writes for MMA-manifesto.com. So make sure you do that. Download the SGPN app, like I said. Follow us on Twitter if you like. I would be Jeff Fox Writer. He would be Gumby Vreeland. Maybe I should change my handle to Juicy Jeff. I wonder if that's taken.
It feels like it would be taken.
Yeah. Of course I have to check now.
Yeah, I was just about to check too.
Juicy Jeff. The real Juicy J is on there. Juicy _ Jeff. Juicy
I got Juicy Jeff. I got Juicy Jeff 45. No,
yeah, Juicy Jeffrey.
Oh, Juicy Jeff's already taken. It's Jeff Horton. He has 2 followers.
How dare you, Jeff Horton? 2 followers. I can totally beat him up with my army of whatever I have now. 900, almost, I think, somewhere around there. Subscribe. I want it to be higher. I don't know how Juicy Jeff. I don't know how professional that would be even on Twitter though. So maybe I better pass on that. I think we told you enough. We're going to be back in a couple of days anyhow, right? Wednesday we'll talk to you again about that. Cannoneer Gastelum card. I'm going to let Dan take you home because I took you home last week. I want to see if he has anything smart to say. Hopefully he slips up so I can correct him after he says bye. So let's see.
I'm Daniel Gubby Freeland. He is Juicy Jeff Fox, and we will catch you on Wednesday.